كل البالانس والدوائر الانتخابية جوه كيباك لحد ألبرتا، مرورا بأونتاريو، مرورا بالدوائر بتاعت ميلاد ميخائيل في إيرميلز ووسيم بطرس في ووترلو، الاثنين المصريين اللي مترشحين لحزب الكونسرفتيف. دلوقتي هنبتدي نعرف كندا هتروح فين، لأن أونتاريو فيها 122 صوت، وال 122 صوت دول هم اللي هيحددوا الأمور. عشان الكونسرفتيف يكسبوا لازم ياخدوا من الجي تي اي، وبالأخص ال 905 رايدز اللي هي بتاعة برامبتون وميسيساغا وميلتون وأوكلاند، واللي هنشوفه في الأيام الوقت اللي أنا بكلمكم فيه هو اللي هيبتدي النتائج تبتدي تطلع. عايز اقول لكم ان هتلاقوها طالعه نازله طالعه نازله، والارقام بتقل وبتكتر لان لسه العد ما اكتملش. الايست بتاع كندا وصل ل 22 لصالح 10، والكونسرفتيف خدوا 4 دوائر من الليبرالز. فدلوقتي هتبتدي تلاقي الحاجات بتتغير زي ما حضراتكم شايفين كده. ابتدت 24-12 والبلوك ده اشياء حاجات كويسه. ابتدى بس الارقام دي مش نهائيه، لانها بتتغير. الليبرال 25-12 هتلاقوا بقى حاجات لانهم لسه بيعدوا. دلوقتي مستنيين الارقام لان في دوائر كتير. البلوك كيبيكوا خدت واحده، وطبعا ده بالنسبه للليبرالز مشكله. عايز اقول ان الكونسرفتيف خد واحده كمان كويسه. انا عايز اقول لكم ان في 30% او 29% زياده في الادفانس بول. 7.5 مليون فرد صوت بزياده 30% عن 2021. الارقام يعني الارقام بتتارجح. بلوك كيبيكوا خد الرابعه، وده يا جماعه اي حاجه من البلوك كيبيكوا. والكونسرفتيف خد 14 بس يا جماعه برضو ده مش فاينل. لما العد يخلص ده بيبقى 10%، بيزيد كل شويه. الليبرالز بقوا 26.
It's actually 2 ridings because of redistribution, a former bloc riding and a liberal held riding. So someone is going to lose a seat, and if the bloc keeps the seat, as opposed to the liberals,
وأحسن حاجة هي الأرقام. 30% زيادة الأدفانس بولز، وده دليل على إن الكنديين عايزين يقولوا حاجة. هنعرف هنقول إيه.
And that is also true of the bloc, with some battles in Quebec City, mostly against conservatives.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Andrew, in just a minute, but Ian's got some results, so you can see the numbers.
ده مش فاينل برضه. ده مش فاينل.
Super quickly in battle for its
results, for example, in François Philippe Champagne's ride.
واو والكونسرفتيف وصلوا ل 18 والبلوك وصلوا ل 6. شغل جامد.
To do so, he has a very small lead there. We can throw it over to some more results.
Yeah, from Les Pays d'en Haut, the Liberal has a lead of 21 votes right now. Again, just two of the 236 polls reporting, because again, these polls just closed about 4 minutes ago, in fact. In Gaspésiennes, 11, and then in Listovich, this was one of the first Quebec polls to close. You see there that, again, the Liberal incumbent is trailing the Bloc Québécois candidate there, Alexis Duchesne, who has the lead right now.
In Essex, by the way, big, glad I didn't have to pronounce that riding, very impressive. Chris Lewis with the lead, the incumbent, the Conservative incumbent in Essex. You can see, again, just one poll reporting there, but the results from provinces where polls have closed are starting to come in, including very quickly here, a lead for David McGuinty, currently serving as the Minister of Public Safety. He's the incumbent in the riding, the McGuinty family, of course, well known in the province of Ontario. Leslie Lewis, the incumbent in Parliament North.
دلوقتي يا جماعة 29-20 كونسرفاتيف ابتدوا يقربوا شوية بشوية بس ده مش فاينل. 21 ابتدى يتقلص المسافة ما بين الليبرالز والكونسرفاتيف. دلوقتي في 9 دوائر لصالح الليبرالز. 9 دوائر لصالح الليبرالز. البلوك بكوار 7. ده مش فاينل يا جماعة.
We know that the Conservative has a lead of 145 votes. Again, quite early in this region of the country, just one of the 252 polls reporting that.
تقلص الفرق ل 8 فقط.
I think so. Yeah, we're looking over. Oh, now we're into Alberta. Lethbridge, Rachel Thomas is the incumbent there. Public safety critical and a host of other things for the Conservative Party. She's, at one poll reporting has a lead. Not a surprise. Michelle 6 polls reporting a commanding lead of nearly 1,000 votes for her.
طبعا أنا عينيا على إيرين ميلز ووترلو.
She's a very well-known member of parliament in Calgary.
In Surrey Moose Mountain, we see here that the Conservative is leading substantially by a vote lead of 407 votes. Again, just one of the 211 polls reporting there. Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake, Rosemary Falk, the Conservative incumbent, with a lead of 1,500 votes right now.
And Alberta, another one of those places, and we heard this earlier from Tara Nelson, looking to see if there's any movement in some of the ridings the Liberals had hope. Hey, if things are as good as we think they might be, we could swing there. So far, no evidence of that, but obviously very, very early. And Lloydminster, not one of the ones they thought they could pick up, but Lethbridge perhaps up there.
Yeah, Alberta, obviously, as we know, Conservatives struggle, but we'll see if there are any gains that other parties are able to make there. Again, those results just trickling in as the polls have just closed about 7 minutes ago. In the
الأرقام دي مش فاينل. لسه بيتم العد 10%. 20% وبتاع عشان كده الارقام بتتغير. لسه في فرق.
Very early results. We're starting to see one. Let's begin with Algonquin read through Pembroke. Now, one poll of 262, a lead of only 5. But keep in mind, Cheryl Glenn has held on to the Conservative Party has held on to this riding since 2000. Cheryl Glenn, long time.
بصوا يا جماعة ال NDP مش موجود على الخريطة خالص.
Everyone immediately always looks for flips. You're not seeing a lot though in the early results. Let's look at Holman, Norfolk, Lewis. That's a sizable lead already, 737.
فرق 12 لصالح الليبرال. هنشوف الموضوع ده هيحصل ازاي.
Counting very fast there. One more to look at, if we can. David McGinty, one poll, but already a lead of 1,000 over the Conservative. That is.
Not surprising.
No, I was about to say it's been a Liberal riding since 1988. So,
and he got in cabinet for the very first time. What was it, Justin Trudeau that put him in cabinet? Yeah, Justin Trudeau. Yes, yeah. And then he stayed there with Mark Carney, so he would like to hold on to
فرق
that.
12 لسه محافظ عليه.
Ian, you have some results.
Yeah, we have 2 results in Manitoba so far, Winnipeg West, and at this point, it's really early. I show you this, though, not so much because of the count, but that this is a riding that both the Conservatives and the Liberals feel really good about. And it is a rematch between Marty Morantz, the incumbent MP, and Doug Ilson, who used to be the MP for this riding. So we're going to keep a close eye on this through the evening. The other result we're getting right now from Manitoba is Riding Mountain. Huge lead for Dan Mazur. He is the incumbent MP there. He's won the last 2 elections with huge margins. So even though it's early there, this is probably an indication of how Riding Mountain will go.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Let's just take a look and take a pause for a moment in terms of where we are tonight as...
There's not much. Gomez started out in the lead, and now the block is up front. I think that's one we're going to watch tonight, certainly. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on Quebec, if you'll just bear with me. Hello, Quebec. Central Quebec, sure, why not Central Quebec? Yes, Berthier Masquinongé. Right now, Berthier Masquinongé, just one poll reporting. If the Liberals win here, that would be a surprising take. Yves Perron, history teacher, the Bloc Québécois incumbent, is behind by 16 votes, but that's a bit of red on the map there. And we want to look, I think, as well at Les Pays d'Eau, and I'm sorry, Jill Giuseppe's going to kill my French, like Les Pays d'Eau. Tim Watchorn is a former mayor of Morin Heights, alpine ski instructor. This would be, it's a new riding, but you put it to begin with in the block column. So right now, that's a good get early on for the Liberals there. And just, I guess, for this one, we'll want to take a look at Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. This would be a surprise if this holds up. Richard Martel, the coach, he coached the Chicoutimi Junior A team, and very popular. He holds that riding for the Conservatives, and right now he's in third, and the block perhaps looking for a steal there in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. That's something else. And Lac Saint Jean, let's take a look at that one. There we go. Somebody who is the son of our panelist doing very well. Alexis Brunel-Dessert is expected to win Lac Saint Jean. He is ahead right now. And something of note, he's been doing a lot of work as a parliamentarian on human rights and doing so well on that he was endorsed by none other than Erwin Copper, the former Liberal Justice Minister, is giving Albuquerque a thumbs up tonight there. So that's a little bit of taste early on in Quebec. Some things up in the air, some things sort of trending the way they ought to. 40, 29, 12 for the bloc. And we have our first two new Democrats on the board, including, let's find those, because that may be, yes, in Northern Ontario, Kenora Kiwetanoon, Eric Malilla was the incumbent. Two Indigenous candidates, Charles Fox and Tanya Cameron, and we'll see how that turns out there. So, two new Democrats finally on the board. Back to you guys.
Okay, I know you just can't stop, David. You just want to keep going across the country.
They cut all these fine provinces.
I know, it's all happening.
I need to keep going.
It's all happening, and we're only waiting now for polls to close in BC and Yukon. So you will see those numbers tick up very quickly. Right now, the Liberals leading are elected in 41. The Conservatives leading are elected in 30. The BQ 12. 31, and the NDP 2. All right, Eric Sorensen is keeping an eye on who is gaining and who is losing. Eric.
Donna, the swing meter is telling us a story here. Remember early in the evening, the Liberals were ahead, the Conservatives were behind, but the swing meter for the Conservatives said they were gaining, and they were making up some ground that were going to get them on their way to that forming government with a plus 27. Well, at the moment now, they're actually, they've had 3 gains, but they're losing in 5 other places, so they're actually at -2 at the moment. They're starting to fall away from that opportunity to form government. The Liberals, on the other hand, their fortune is changing at the moment, and you can see from our swing meter what's happening exactly. They are gaining some ridings. I'm coming way over here. This is the swing up for the Liberals. They are gaining some ridings and losing a couple, but they are at a net gain of 3. For a majority, they need to get up to 18. Now, if the Liberals can get to 18 or on the night, that 3 would be partway there. What's interesting about these numbers is the ones on the side here. The Liberals have won a couple of ridings against the Conservatives, lost some ridings to Conservatives, but they are picking up 5 so far from the Bloc Québécois. So part of the leading and help that the Liberals are getting right now is coming at the expense of the Bloc Québécois in Quebec, and I think that's an interesting thing. The swing meter is telling us that the Conservatives now are having a little more difficulty on their way to form government. The Liberals getting a bit of a pickup now, perhaps on their way to try and form a majority. The swing meter is doing the job we asked it to.
ده الوضع حاليا. هل ده الأخير؟ لا، لسه في حاجات هتتغير everything الأرقام كل ثانية بتتغير. أنا بقول لكم بمنتهى الصراحة بمنتهى الصراحة دلوقتي لسه احنا بنبتدي العد، فالأرقام طالعة نازلة، الأرقام طالعة نازلة. الوضع بيقول إن من المفروض ال 18 اللي يكسبوا اللي بيحصل دلوقتي اللي بيتغير. وأنا بكلمكم كان فرق 13 دايرة، دلوقتي تقلص ل6 دواير، 5 دواير. الأرقام ممتازة، الأرقام ممتازة. 6 دواير طالعة نازلة زي ما حضراتكم شايفين. زي ما حضراتكم شايفين.
She went to Vegas during the campaign, but things have changed a lot for Ruth Ellen Brousseau. She lives in the riding now. She is a farmer.
احنا دلوقتي في كيباك والدنيا طالعة نازلة.
started to flow and this cafe is in the heart of Toronto St. Paul's riding. This is the Conservative Watch Party, where they're hoping there will be a reason to celebrate tonight with what they hope will be the re-election of Don Stewart. That is yet to be seen because numbers are not in yet. But if you look at this riding, this is really where the story of this election began. At a by-election that was called and held in June of
يا
last
جماعة
year, so
حزب
10 months ago,
الليبرالز
when
47 حزب الكونسرفاتيف 38 البلوك كيبيكوا 12 الان دي بي 1 هل الارقام دي ثابته؟ لا بتتغير بالعد لسه في عد الارقام يعني بتتغير كل شويه
What other ridings across the country may be up for grabs? It was widely seen as a referendum on Trudeau's leadership, and what followed was months of Liberal rebellion and ultimately his resignation on January 6th. But tonight with Trudeau no longer at the helm of this party, and Carney, as we've seen in recent weeks, ahead in the polls, the question for voters here today was, will they come back, if they were traditional Liberals, will they come back to the fold, or will they re-elect the Conservative? The wild cards in this riding are somewhat unique and not unique. Trump is one of the #1 issues here, as we've been hearing right across the country, but also is the war in Gaza, the ongoing war between Israel and Gaza. And that's particular to this riding because 10% of the electorate here are Jewish, and many of them feel more heard by the Conservative camp, and so they're moving to the right on this issue. It is such a tight race that in recent days we've seen star candidates from other Greater Toronto Area ridings be parachuted in by both parties, trying to shore up support. People just behind me here moments ago said, oh my God, I'm starting to get nervous. The results are coming in. We're waiting to see, certainly at this cafe, whether it will be a cause for celebration tonight. Donna.
Hey, Carolyn Jarvis in the riding of Toronto St. Paul's. Another close race to keep an eye on. And Eric, we're going to look at some ridings in Quebec where it's looking very close as well tonight.
الكلام ده بتاع كيبيك برضو ما بين الليبرالز والبلوك كيبيكوا.
Well, I think if we're flipping the seat
Ontario هي اللي هتعمل للكونسرفاتيف أو لا.
more narrow of a race than we predicted in Ontario in particular.
Okay, Susan, what do you make of that? Because of course, I think it's safe to say that Liberals, Liberal HQ was hoping to do very strongly in Atlantic Canada because it would give them the confidence as polls opened up westward. And at this point, Conservatives are holding, potentially gaining. What does that mean for Liberal chances going west?
Well, if you think about where we started out in January, holding is pretty good, and gaining a few seats or only flipping one at this stage of the game is not too bad. I think it's going to be a tight race throughout the night. I think we're going to be here for a while watching returns come in, waiting for advanced polls to be counted. Canadians have turned out in record numbers. They're very motivated in this election. I think the country is pretty polarized, though, and I think the NDP vote, how it peels off from some of the seats that may have gone Liberal otherwise, is going to be very interesting too. I think the Liberals are on track to do what they needed to do, and like I said, it was going to be a blue wave if we'd had an election in January. It's not going to be a blue wave. But I think the mix of red and blue across the country, hopefully we land more red than blue, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
Okay, and you were saying we'll be here watching very late, and we actually have some new video to share with people at home because we're not the only ones watching. Take a look at Liberal leader Mark Carney. He is watching the results very closely as well, because this could be a very big night for him if the polls, if the predictions actually do come through for the Liberal Party. And there you have Mark Carney watching results. I'm going to bring in Farouk Kadib right now. Farouk, the NDP right now leading in only one riding. Susan predicating the Liberal victory on whether or not the Liberals will be successful in peeling away votes for the NDP. How is the party feeling right now?
I'm going to take a drink first.
I hate to disappoint you, it's only water.
It's going to be one of many. If we look at the time, because that's the results we have most, it's 12 points percentage points less than the NDP. It's plus 8% for the Conservative, who are outperforming the polls in Atlantic Canada, so they're doing slightly better. The Liberals are kind of status quo, maybe a bit under. But the NDP is the story, I think, in Atlantic Canada, that collapse of the vote. Not sure the behavior of NDP voters in Atlantic Canada will be the same across the country, just specific NDP voters in Atlantic Canada, so that's something to watch for. But yeah, it's disappointing. It's going to be a long night, but silver lining. since the Liberal, I think, in Atlantic Canada are underperforming a little bit and the Conservative are overperforming a little bit, I think there's a scenario of minority government coming to fruition, maybe more probabilities of it, and so the seats in BC at the end, that the NDP can pick up 5, 6, 7, 8 seats, could be the balance of power at the end. So there's two options.
Balance of power, British Columbia. What about Ontario then?
Ontario, it's going to be hard. Usually we're the NDP is strong in the Northern Ontario. There's one riding that is now no longer there, and Mr. Angus is not reoffering. He was a really, really good candidate for us, so a good MP. So to look for is in the Southwest
at this point in time. Oshawa, this was a Conservative riding. This is Toma GM. Colin Carey was the longtime Conservative MP, decided not to run. Rhonda Kirkland's running. This is where Pierre Poilievre had one of those monster rallies. I was at that particular one. Lots of people coming down from all over. So Conservatives leading there. I'm trying to take a look. Oh, this should not be Liberal. This is Jamie Schmale, the incumbent. One poll in. It seems unlikely that this is a rural part of Ontario, beautiful part of Ontario. Liberals right there. So we got some stuff happening in GTA. A lot of gray still. We'll see what transpires.
Oh, so that'll start coloring in very shortly. Thank you, David. We're going to go to Shediac, New Brunswick now, which is in Beausejour, the riding of Dominic LeBlanc, longtime Liberal, who has won in that riding. Suzanne Lapointe is with him. Suzanne.
Hi, I'm here with Dominic, who was just elected again as MP for...
The Bloc's got to be worried at this point. All the candidates in this riding, they're not really well known. So what that means is this riding is about the parties and the party leaders. It's a real three-way race. Going into it tonight, it was too close to call. Right now, the incumbent Bloc is running third after the Liberals and the Conservatives. It is early yet, but that's not a good sign because this riding is thought to be a very good indicator of what might happen here in Quebec. We'll take a look at the other riding in the Gaspé. We've been talking about that for a while because the results here came in about 30 minutes earlier because it's in an earlier time zone. It's really, really tight. It's been going back and forth between the Bloc and the Liberals. The Bloc has put in a fairly well-known media personality here, Alexis Deschênes, but as we say, it's still really, really close. They're still going back and forth, but overall, especially what's happening in Trois-Rivières and also what's happening in Gaspé, the Bloc cannot be very happy tonight so far. Let's see what's going on in Ottawa now. Patricia?
All right, Ms. Simi, we want to come back to the Carleton riding, which is such an interesting one in so many ways. Pierre Poilievre has held on to it since 2004, but he has never seen this kind of competition, at least in terms of numbers. 91 candidates in that Carleton riding where the ballot is nearly a meter long. I don't have the actual ballot here, but when I printed out the names, it's 3 pages worth, and we don't have any results, as you can see yet. It's all very interesting because not only do we have that long ballot with all the names on there, part of a protest from a group called the Longest Ballot Committee. They're protesting the current first-past-the-post electoral system, so could be some delays because of all those names, but it also had, Carleton did, the highest voter turnout in advance polls anywhere in the country. So there's a lot of ballots to count. To mitigate delays, Elections Canada said they were going to begin counting those ballots cast in the advance polls 6 hours before polls close. Extra teams being brought in, but as you can see, we do not have any numbers out of that key Carleton riding where Pierre Poilievre is running just yet. We want to go back over to Toronto in the Greater Toronto area and Michelle now.
Thanks, Patricia. Well, the polls have closed here in Toronto and the GTA, and we're starting to get some of the numbers rolling in here in this vote-rich part of the country. I want to draw your attention to Ajax. This is a riding we've been watching. This was Mark Holland's riding, not running for re-election. Jennifer McKelvey running for the Liberals in this riding. She's well known. She was a councillor. She was interim mayor of Toronto for a while. She's hoping to keep the seat red. Greg Brady is a well-known Canadian radio host. He has a show, Toronto Today. So far, Jennifer McKelvey is leading, but we only got one of the polls reporting. This is certainly one that could be a battle, and we'll be watching. And then Markham Stouffville. Interesting so far. This is incumbent Helena Jasek's riding. Right now, we have the Conservative candidate, a police officer, who seems to be leading, but again, it's early days.
but it is nice to see some results starting to come in, and I think shortly we'll be getting a better sense of if there are winds of change blowing through this part of the country or if people are deciding to stay the course. We'll send it over to Calgary. Tara Nelson.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I'm just looking at the ticker there. We have one NDP seat on the board so far. There should be a few more coming in as we work our way across the prairies and the results start coming in. There's one I want to draw your attention to in Edmonton, and that is Edmonton-Griesbach. So Blake Desjardins won this in 2021. It was a very close race, one for the NDP, with just a 4% margin, 1,500 votes over the incumbent, Kerry Diot, the Conservative incumbent there. He was a two-term MP. He was also a former city councillor. This was a very big upset in 2021. Diot wants it back. He's running again. This could be a very tight race. I am seeing pollsters talk about a group of voters called modest metros, and these are young voters in urban areas, and their biggest concern is their financial future and their financial security. There are a lot of them in Griesbach. So if Desjardins has been able to target those voters and talk to them about what the NDP is going to do to help secure their financial future, he might be able to harness some of that young vote tonight, and that could be what pushes him over the edge. We'll keep an eye on it, but it's going to be a close race. Let's go to Michelle in Vancouver.
Thank you, Tara. 3 more minutes till polls close here in BC. BC may be the last to vote, definitely not the least. There are 43 ridings up for grabs, many too close to call. If the Liberals are on the path to victory, depending on what happens in the rest of the country, it could come down to BC. The Liberals need to hang on to ridings like Vancouver Centre, home to Canada's oldest MP, Hetty Fry. She's running for re-election. Some say she is unbeatable. Hetty Fry's 83, has been serving in the parliament since 1993. She was a rookie then who took down former Prime Minister Kim Campbell. Liberals are also banking on retaining North Vancouver Capilano, which is held by Cabinet Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. And he won handily last time around. We're also watching Burnaby North Seymour, held by Terry Beach. He's been the MP there.
There are some phenomenal new candidates as well. You just saw Billy Warnock on the screen. I worked very closely with him as Premier. He was chief of the Enoch Cree First Nation, and really a significant leader in economic development for First Nations in Western Canada. He, together with Ellis Ross, former chief councillor of the Haisla First Nation out in the BC West Coast Kitimat, if those two are elected, we'll see two very strong voices for reconciliation for First Nations to not just exercise the right to say no in consultation, but to say yes to responsible resource development. So one of the interesting aspects of this campaign has been energy has not been a dominant, but a significant issue, perhaps for the first time ever. And you may end up with some very strong pro-resource development First Nations leaders in the next parliament.
And that may be because of Donald Trump, really. That's why we're talking about it in a different way than we have before. Okay, thank you for that, Jason Kenney. Polls closing in British Columbia in just over 2 minutes, which will add another 44, British Columbia and the Yukon, another 44 polls to our count, and which will mean that all polls are closed right across the country. That happens at 10 p.m. Eastern. 343 seats, remember, because there has been a map that has been redistributed. 172 is the magic number to get you to a majority government, but we are not able to get anywhere near calling any of those things yet because results are still coming in, and Adrian has some.
Well, you're not kidding about them coming in fast.
I told you.
All right, let's look at some important ridings that we've been talking about all night. Let's start with Peterborough, because this has always been a riding to watch. Historically, a bellwether, bucked the trend in 2021 when Michelle Ferreri, a popular TV anchor, won. But look at that lead, 436 for Emma Harrison, a small business owner, with just 308 polls reporting. The Liberals will want to hang on to that one. Let's look at the next one here. This is important. Newmarket Aurora. Okay, so this was the second slimmest margin of victory for the Liberals in the GTA in 2021. But look at what is happening. Sandra Kubana, lead of 227, just 2 of 212's polls reporting, but that is.
Do you think it is? I mean, I know from, the Liberal campaign certainly was counting on Quebec to be a part of their story tonight. All of the map that we've seen that showed anywhere approaching a Liberal majority meant the bloc kind of collapsed by at least 10 seats compared to the last election. Have we seen that yet? It's not totally clear, but it's very interesting to see some of these very key ridings in play when the incumbent's in third place.
that says that there's something different in the air.
And we keep talking about this collapse. I mean, just to contextualize it right now, and again, it is early, but a dissolution of the Bloc Québécois. 2 seconds time. Amanda, this is another region of the country that we're watching particularly closely for the NDP. But you know, when you look at British Columbia too, it's not as exposed to the U.S.-Canada situation as other parts of the country are, but still when it comes to softwood lumber and those sectors, that's big in that part.
In some ways, of course, BC has been suffering from tariffs much longer. Yeah, that's right. The lumber tariffs, but now we have tariffs on top of tariffs. It's a super sensitive issue, but it does, of course, stand a little bit apart from the Western sentiment, which has been a little bit divided over how to manage tariffs. You might get more of that national fervor out of BC here. So it will be, I think you nailed it. The question will be whether you see the weakness in the NDP flowing to the Liberals. Not much hope for the Conservatives there. Polls are now closed.
For a majority government, so we should, you know, over the next little while get a sense of who will be leading this country, and then whether it is a majority or a minority. Let's get straight to Heather.
Between the Conservative and the Liberal incumbent.
And I keep looking up at the polls reporting, and in this case, we're, you know, we're about 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
And so Sean Fraser is biting his nails at this point.
All right. David Aiken is looking at
Western
we've got some numbers coming in Alberta already.
Yeah, so let's remember we can keep going at west. I mean, there's a lot of action in Quebec, a lot of action in Ontario, but I wanted to tell people what's going on way out west. Right now, if you're looking at that, you see a little dot of orange, not a little dot, a big dot of orange. That's the riding south of Edmonton, Leduc, Wetaskiwin. There's only 3 polls in. The incumbent is Mike Lake. He's been there since 2004-06. He's been there for a while. This riding, I think the Conservatives would be favored, but right now we put it in the NDP column with Catherine Swampy having a 41 vote lead over the Liberals and just 12 votes, but again, just 3 in. That may change blue. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's very strange. I don't know if the NDP would win there. But take a look at this one. Edmonton Southeast, this is Amarjeet Sohi trying for a comeback to the House of Commons. Sohi was elected in 2015, was in Justin Trudeau's cabinet, then lost, then became the mayor of Edmonton, and now he is in second place right now, but just 1 poll in Edmonton Southeast. But that is definitely a riding that the Liberals are confident they will win. And that plus Edmonton Centre might give them 2 in there. In Calgary right now, we don't have a lot reporting. We got that one right there, Nose Hill, the very popular Michelle Rempel-Garner, popular in Conservative circles. Only Pierre Poilievre is better at raising money than Michelle Rempel-Garner, who right now, with 22 polls in already in Calgary. Isn't that something? They're very efficient in Nose Hill, but they don't have any other polls except down in Calgary Midnapore. Stephanie Kuzy, this is a very conservative part of Calgary. She's leading there. Let's just quickly check in on Winnipeg, Manitoba. There we go. In Winnipeg, we have a potential pickup. The Liberals are definitely targeting the New Democrats in Winnipeg Centre. We only have 1 poll reporting, and right now it's a 15-vote lead for the Liberal over the incumbent League is in. So that's just a quick little snapshot very early of Western Canada. There's Nikki Ashton, got to put 2 on the board. She's held off all challengers over the years. The Liberals, again, are very interested in taking this right now. Nikki Ashton well ahead. So I'll throw it back to you guys before I get carried away.
Okay. That never happened, Dave. All right, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick peek at Mark Carney's riding. He is running in the Pien in the Ottawa region, and he, at this point, it's only 1 poll reporting, but he has a very comfortable lead there. So we'll see how that shapes up.
The NDP vote, a lot of them are talking, a lot of supporters, a lot of them are actually happy coming over to Liberals, very concerned again about what's taking place with President Trump, making sure that we have a strong showing.
As other provinces, BC's many elections in one. So an election.
Communities, and you're certainly seeing the NDP vote really collapse there. Okay. But then on the north part of the island, you're seeing a lot of orange-blue fights for sure, because working class voters, mill towns, mining towns, those kinds of places where those working class messages really have an impact. But the thing is, if the NDP votes collapse, those ridings are more likely to go conservative than just about anywhere else in the province other than kind of northern British Columbia. So it's going to be, I heard somebody say earlier, BC is like the microcosm of the whole country. I think it was Scott Reed. And
I think that's going to turn out to be true tonight.
I'm going to keep going. I can hear this music. I don't know if it's like the Oscars where they're going to sing a song. I'm going to keep going. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the collapse of the NDP vote. What happened there and what were the factors? Is this something more? Is this the
I just have to interrupt you because our decision desk is just coming up with some data. We are about to reach a pivotal moment in this unprecedented campaign. We are about to make a call. Stand by for major declaration from the CTV News decision desk. This will be your next government. We are getting the results momentarily, seconds from now. It's the time we've all been waiting for. And there you have it. CTV News decision desk declaring a Liberal win. We know that the Liberals will be forming the next government of Canada. The big question right now, Vashi, is will it be a majority or a minority? And this is a live shot you're looking at. I believe it's at the Liberal Party headquarters in Ottawa. I'm assuming there will be some kind of celebration.
But they will soon.
Well, and really good point, because a lot of folks may not realize that the advanced polls are coming in first because they're already there. Lisa, the numbers were looking pretty good for the Conservatives, looking not as great now, but it's not terrible, and we're still very early. Do you draw any early conclusions from what we're seeing with these numbers that are now starting to register quite quickly?
I guess what I was saying before we came on air, it's so much information coming in at once. It's hard to divine what the heck's going on. You've got 118 ridings to report yet. So that's a lot. So you can't really draw much from it, but it's nice to see some of my friends get reelected, I'll say that.
And we have Jill up on the panel, whose son is doing very well right now.
So we have to wait until it's official. It happened to me in 93, we're sure to be elected, but everything was late. They were calling me I was the one with Jacques Parizeau because Lucien Bouchard was in Alma, having the meeting in Montreal. So all the journalists were saying, come. I said, no, it's not official. When it be official, I'll be there. Otherwise, look at what happened to Jean Charest once. He made a victory speech and he lost.
We have a nervous father in front of us.
Yes, I agree with that. But you spoke about the advanced poll. Also, it depends in each riding from where the polls are coming from.
Exactly.
So sometimes
that can make a big difference.
you don't know if that part is Liberal, that part is Bloc, that part is it. So we don't know.
So at the local campaign level, if you've got a good campaign, you'll see the polls coming in, and you'll know what each of those polls mean for your campaign, right? So you're sitting there, and you've got sometimes something will flash on the screen, and we'll say, "Holy cow! How's that person winning, or how are they losing?" And it's 5 polls reporting. But even more importantly, even when you get to half the polls reporting, who's left, and is your vote coming that's left, or is it not? And that's what you learn as folks that have been through a couple of elections.
Emotional corridor.
Well, this good and bad. Yeah. But this is the opportunity where Canadians can just watch this come in. Don't draw any conclusions yet. This is going to go, and then we'll see those iterations, and we'll start to hear from the parties saying those seat numbers are not going to hold, or this is looking like it's going away.
Canada must be settled though by now.
I don't know. We're seeing some still come in with 30-40% still remaining outstanding. David Akerman will know.
Very close.
And I know a huge element of this is get out the vote and getting the voters out who you know are going to vote for you. I just want to do kind of a quick round robin of what you've heard from your parties about how that get out the vote effort might have gone, how much effort was put into it, starting with you, Seamus.
Well, I think we're known for it. We got very good at it leading into 2015. We have relied on our GOTV, and this will be. It is well organized on the ground. It is all about making sure you identify your vote. I didn't have a full appreciation for it as a journalist until I got into politics in 2014, 2015. It is about identifying that vote, going around, knocking on doors, figuring out who's a Liberal, who will vote as a Liberal, and then making sure they vote. And it's a big day.
My call around today was what are the numbers like in what Seamus just talked about.
Okay, well,
that's what's
we have to wrap right now, but we will get your take on it. I promise you, at least as we come back. We're all looking forward to the end of those many text messages about whether you're going to vote for someone, I think.
All right, panel. Mercedes, thanks so much. And we do have some breaking news now. Global News is ready to make a call. Global News is now projecting a Liberal government. It's a Liberal government. We're not saying majority or minority, but Global News is projecting that the Conservatives can't win enough seats at this point to form a government.
Yeah.
So we'll have, Eric, did you have thoughts on that?
Well, what they're saying is they can't catch up to where the Liberals are. At the moment, the Liberals are ahead by, it looks like 30 now.
There's a huge one there. Shefford, though, this is more votes have been counted. They have a lead of just around 900 votes over Andréane Larouche of the Bloc. So this would be a pickup from the Bloc. We actually see a number of these kinds of ridings across the province. This is one we're going to be watching all night, so I wanted to take a look at it. Myrtle Brousseau trying to make that comeback. That the candidate who had spent part of the campaign in 2011 in Las Vegas made herself into quite a good constituency MP. We'll see what's going to happen in that riding. And if we take another look around where things are in and around Montreal, you can see that in these two ridings in the Rive-Nord, these are where the Liberals are leading in Thérèse de Blainville. Very small margin right now, but it was a key target for the Liberals. And in Rivière-des-Mines, again, it's just very few votes have been counted there. But these are two ridings that the Liberals were targeting in the Montreal area. So we'll see if we're going to have more of those Bloc ridings flip over to the Liberals in the greater Montreal area. Now, if we go to Ontario, we'll go to, why don't we start in Eastern Ontario? Pretty much what we would have expected in Ottawa, in Gatineau, that the Liberals are doing well there, winning in Prescott, Russell, Cumberland. But here's an interesting one, Bay of Quinte. This is a riding that the Liberals would be targeting. They won it in 2015. Right now, Chris Millette is ahead of Ryan Williams by a very few amount of votes, but it is certainly going to be one to watch. How about this one? Bellwether, Peterborough. And we have actually a lot of votes counted here. We've got 10 boxes. And we got Emma Harrison leading Michelle Ferrari by, about 800 votes. And this is a bellwether riding. Often the winner of this, if they win it, the Liberals have won it, they get a majority. If in the past, that's often the case if the Conservatives do, then the Liberals may not be able to win it. We go to the Greater Toronto area. There's a bit of blue here. There's a bit of extra blue that we might not have expected. Some of them we'll have to wait and see. Look at a riding like a Total. This is Ford's riding. Ford Nation. It's also one of the safest Liberal ridings in all of Toronto. Chrissy Duncan who win this by huge margins. Right now, it's John Lazarcelli is the winning candidate very early on, which you can see that the Conservatives have the edge there. That's so far it's not a bad job for Conservatives. The prosperous Canada are very, very long. To the east, 42 so there's still lots of close ridings to watch.
Anti-liberal rashry. Won't keep the liberals away, but it will take care of the rash. All right. We got anti-liberal wipes, sanitizer, in case you touch a liberal. They're really fun. We're having fun, and we're going to be donating products all this to a charity as well. This is Raquel. Raquel German.
Will go liberal. Now let's go into Manitoba. The Liberals are currently sitting at 4 seats. We had suggested they would 6 here.
الأرقام دي يا جماعة بتقول الليبرال جفرمنت
majority level. They have one obviously in the north right now where they're leading in the MP held riding of Churchill. And they've got a couple of seats, 3 seats right now in Winnipeg, and these are also seats where the Liberals will be competitive once we get more results. So there is still upward potential for the Liberals as they try to get to that magic number of 172. And this helps right here. This is Mississippi Churchill River. That's a liberal. We live in Saskatchewan. Do not adjust yourself. It's not officially projected or elected yet, but this is a chance for the Liberals to break through in Saskatchewan for the first time since Ralph Goodale was a member of Parliament. And here in Alberta, you see a lot of blue. This is where a lot of the Conservative seats are coming from. But Liberals and the New Democrats are going to be in a battle. Those 2 seats that I just showed, those would be pickups right now for the Liberals if those results hold. So Rosie, you can see a roughly even performance in the Atlantic with the potential to get back to where it was and maybe grow a little bit. A good early start in Quebec, decent numbers in Ontario, presence in the prairies. Still too early to say exactly what's going to happen in British Columbia. But BC often complains about being the empty net goal on election night. they might be the winner tonight when the results come in there.
Okay, and one of the reasons we have yet to call what kind of government Canada will have is because there are 100 ridings where the vote margin is about 100 votes. And that is simply too close to call for us and for the decision desk. And so we're going to wait to be sure before we get to that point. And that's partly why, as David said, British Columbia could be awfully important here tonight. You're always important in British Columbia, but even more important in terms of forming government for Mark Carney to become now, who is the Prime Minister right now, but stays Prime Minister, the 24th Prime Minister, and now, for sure, won't have any problems beating Charles Tupper's record of being Prime Minister for only 68 days. He's going to hang in there a little bit longer, apparently. Ashley Burke is at Liberal headquarters. Dealing with the news and waiting for more news in terms of what kind of government they're going to have for this fourth mandate, Ashley.
You heard the reaction here in the room, Rosie. People erupted, they were cheering, they were excited. Just moments before that, we were talking about
François-Philippe Champagne elected pretty easily, pretty handily beating his Conservative rival. And the NDP is last behind the Conservatives and Bloc.
Stansted, alors Marianne Dandurand devant la...
Constance Stansted, Marianne Dandurand, who beats Nathalie Bess for the Bloc. The Liberals were counting on this. Look at the difference, 5,815 to 2,619. And once again, the NDP is last fourth. That's heartbreaking as well. So I think it gives us a good idea, a good picture of the picture in Quebec and the last board. No, that was the last one. Okay, Michael, let's look at Montreal now. We were talking about this earlier. Montreal is a urban vote, is generally red, liberal. Will Alexandre Boulris hold on to his seat in Rosemont et Patrie? There are two blue ridings. Let's look at them. I don't think that will remain Conservative. Laurie Saint-Marie, Stephen Cuboche riding. 11 votes have been counted so far. I think it will be blue. Mike Royal, that's perhaps more interesting. The Conservatives hope to win this type of riding into the House, whether the outgoing member. We'll see if it remains blue. That's surprising. Rosemont et Petit-Patrie, Alexandre Boulris is now ahead. Just 3 boxes have been counted so far. Then you can see that he has a lead of a couple of votes over Jean-Sébastien Vallée, but it's something we'll keep an eye on. So that's interesting. Well, it's too difficult to say, but in the southern suburbs, the northern suburbs, let's look at what's going on there, because these are ridings where the race is very, very tight between the Bloc and the Liberals. What's happening? Well, let's look at La Perriette again. Now this is a target for Liberals. Alain Thériault for the Bloc is second, is behind. And if we look at
عايزين نطمن بس على المصريين.
This was won by the Liberals last time.
هي هتبقى مصيبة على
That's a
كندا.
target for the Liberals once again. Nathan Joseph is ahead of Denis Trudel, the outgoing MP for the Bloc. And the North Shore Terrebonne now, the Liberals are behind the Bloc by a few hundred votes. The Thérèse de Verville here. That's a target for the Liberals. They're in the lead. The Liberals in the lead there. Rivière de Mille-Îles. Once again, not many boxes counted, just 3. So what we're seeing is on the South Shore, we're seeing possible gains for the Liberals. So, thanks, Eric.
Eric, stand by there. I'm going to ask the controller to get us the national leading elected. But going back quickly to you, Eric, at the board, can you call up Mount Royal again? Just take a look at that riding result for us right now. If we can go into Mount Royal, just the interesting story, the fact that Erwin Collar, former Justice Minister for the Liberals, is in support of Anthony Housefather, but at the same time his wife was supporting the Conservative candidate, which I interviewed Mr. Collar about, and it was one of those, Lucy, you have explaining to do. So a bit of the split there. But Eric, thank you for that. Let's bring in the national leading elected board right now for how things are breaking down across the country. Liberals elected 26 ridings, leading in 113. Conservatives at 20 elected, leading in 88. Cole, I'm going to bring you in at this point as the declaration has been made of a Liberal government. Where does this leave the Conservative campaign? Where are they looking to essentially hold off the Liberal majority at this point?
So we'll see how the results play out in the prairies and in Western Canada in particular. I'll be looking to see if there are Liberal gains in Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg. If it's a blue shutout there, then maybe they can sort of boost up their own numbers and tamp down any Liberal gains across the prairies. We'll see how the rest of Ontario plays out, and then finally at the end, seeing if we can maintain things, gain a few seats in BC, and see if we can get above the 2021 results.
Yeah, and again, a Liberal government now declared, waiting to see if it's majority or a minority. You talk about the West, you reference Ontario very quickly, but I'm going to ask you to dig down, because of course the battleground is the 905. How are Conservatives feeling about that race right now?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that shifted throughout the election. Obviously, Pierre spent a lot of time in the GTA. Brampton, Mississauga, a lot of smaller towns, a lot of efforts put toward rallies in particular to try to switch things and shift things over. But the problem with Ontario, even if the gap narrowed significantly throughout the process of the election, the Liberals still maintain, a 5 to 9, 10-point lead throughout the election that might have been too hard to close the gap on. So we'll see what we end up with at the end of the night.
Okay, Susan, let's bring you into the conversation right now. Obviously, Liberals feeling good, the fact that it's been declared a government for the party. How do you feel right now about the chances of making that into a majority for the government?
Hopeful. I mean, we always knew it was going to be tight. I'd like to congratulate the Liberals and congratulate all the parties that we have worked hard together against. I mean, it's a democracy.
But I think in he comes.
One thing we do know is that he will not be prime minister. Let's go to Mercedes Stevenson and the political panel. Mercedes.
Thanks, Donald. Our first opportunity to react to that call of a Liberal government. Lisa, I want to start with you this time. Of course, I'm going to pick on the Conservative. But I don't think this is a huge surprise. I heard that the leader was making calls today warning people that this could be a tough night. But is this what was expected?
I guess we really didn't know at the end of the day, but internal polling is going to show you what they have. So if he was making those phone calls, good on him. I think we have a lot to be proud of in Atlantic, Canada, which is a bit of a surprise. I thought we weren't going to do as well there. And let's see how the rest of Ontario rolls. It's a real mixed bag, though, Mercedes. I have to say, some folks I expected to win aren't, and some people I thought were not going to win are. So who knows what the electorate's thinking out there, but it'll all be revealed soon.
The NDP crushed tonight. What do you make of that performance?
Well, not crushed yet. Give us a.
It's not looking great.
It's a different. I'm not going to repeat that. We were expecting a difficult night. We have, I guess, the lament. For those of us that have been involved, we know a bunch of these candidates. We know the quality of some of the people, through no fault of their own, are not going to be successful tonight. And this is the life of politics. This happens. I lament it more for Canadians because sometimes you see somebody lose who doesn't really deserve to. They did a great job as an MP. They were wonderful at their thing. But this is the age that we live in, and this is the election that we live in. I just wouldn't get it wrong in terms of interpreting what comes out of tonight. Why, right? Why did we talk about this a bit tonight? This context of this election will be for this time. It won't be for the next time. We're not dealing with the president trying to take over the country and destroy our economy. Then we'll see what's next. And I think some of the issues will resonate, but let's watch what happens next. And the NDP were able to accomplish an enormous amount with just 24 MPs. I'm hoping they're able to return enough, and we don't know about Liberal majority minority yet.
Right.
That is going to be enormously consequential for everybody who's considering what happens next.
And one of the factors I want to come back to, but flagging, this is just me planting the flag. We're going to come back to the future, what happens in the future of both of your leaders in light of what has happened tonight. But Seamus, Liberal government, is Donald Trump basically the best thing that's ever happened to the Liberal Party?
Donald Trump is working on that.
Yeah, our change of leader has already happened, clearly, and it did have a huge effect. I mean, I said before, you talk about expectations going into this election. I mean, going into it right now, we were hoping for a Liberal government. It's still a possibility, perhaps, of a majority government. But think of where we were just 2-3 months ago. This is an extraordinary switch of political fortunes, and still I think a hugely unpredictable campaign. We'll see where it goes. A lot of those seats, Lisa and I know a lot of people in Atlantic Canada appear to be very local, and I'm going to be looking forward to seeing where a lot of those land as the numbers continue to come in. Clearly, this is a good night for the Liberal Party, not one that 3 months ago we would have expected, one that we in the past month and a half, 2 months, we've been preparing for.
Sheila, I want to ask you, we're seeing the block at, I'm looking at the screen here, 23 right now, so I mean, you're projecting 25, so pretty close to that. That puts the block in a position, if this is a minority government, to potentially back.
We don't know yet if it will be a minority government. If it is, they could play, it depends also how many members the NDP will have. So I would say that both the Liberals and the Republicans have the same color, they're both red.
So should I take that as the block may not be backing up?
More seriously, I think there's 2 important dates to come with the coming negotiations. The election in a year and a half in the States, all the Congress, and 1/3 of the Senate, and 1/3 of the governors. That'd be important. And the election in Quebec also, within a year and a half or 2, 22, that'd be important also. And in politics, things change a lot. I do remember in 1993, Jean Charest used to say half of his caucus was composed of women. And they were too.
It was their best showing.
And look what happened after. The Liberals were 30 in 2011. We were 4. So quite a difference today.
Seamus is describing it well. The need to be humble. And I say this with all seriousness. What comes next for the Liberals? They just went through a near-death experience. They, as you say, 3 months ago, it was hard to imagine this kind of scenario. Do things change? Mr. Trudeau leaves, Mr. Trump comes in. Well, we have a different context. But one of the things that hurt, I believe, the last Liberal government was any notions of entitlement or smugness or not listening. And in particular, as we watch the results come in from Western Canada, I deeply, sincerely say, listening to Western Canada in meaningful ways, talking about the things that we've always talked about, are going to be really important for this government, minority or majority, maybe even more important than majority.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into to find out minority, majority. We'll change things radically either way. It's time.
Reaction of all the provinces after those negotiations.
And those
BC, Western Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. It could make a hell of a debate, I would say, in Canada saying we won or not, or they prefer a certain province, they forgot to protect things that we wanted them to protect, and it could be an important debate.
No doubt a big role, and Donna, of course, the questions about how this goes for Mr. Carney going forward. He's had a relatively short time as Prime Minister, where it's been an improvement over Mr. Trudeau. If this is a minority government and he's not able to negotiate better than Mr. Trudeau, Liberals' fortunes could be a big question mark. But it's a big night for the Liberals tonight, for sure, after what they've been through, to be pulling off any kind of a government.
Okay, Mercedes, thank you. Yes, it is a Liberal win tonight. Mark Carney will be the Prime Minister. This is the first time he'll be elected to public office. It looks like he's handling winning his seat in Ottawa. Eric, let's take a look at the popular vote.
Well, the Liberals are up by about 8 points at the moment. You would expect to see that. I think as these numbers add up on the screen below, is that me?
Yeah, it's you. I'll turn that off.
Tonight, right?
You had 2 though.
No, but that one didn't happen on air. That doesn't count. Sorry. The Liberals over the Conservatives where they are right now.
Let's have a look at someone who is having a difficult night, but at least his own riding is secure. That's Yves-François Blanchet in the riding of Belleuil-Chambly. He has won handily in that riding, but he is probably not enjoying the evening so far, given where things are tracking for the Bloc. Remember, at last vote, the Bloc Québécois had 35 seats, and right now they're tracking towards 23. We'll continue to watch some of those numbers, because as we've told you, the vote is changing. It is close still in many, many ridings across the country. And that is why we are waiting to tell you whether you have a minority or majority. Dr. Breckenridge-Canyon, I can see you there. Yves-François Blanchet has been elected. We have, Decision Desk has projected him elected, but not a strong evening so far for the Bloc Québec. What were you hearing?
It is not, and you'll forgive me, I was just turning your eyes.
Really losing a loss, yes, really losing in that riding of votes in Quebec. Let's get to Sandy Ronaldo, who's been really gauging the sentiment of the people. Sandy, over to you.
Oh, Omar, let me tell you, my guests have been itching to have an opportunity to say what's on their mind, but the word that keeps coming up again and again is polarization. So talk to me, John.
Well, I mean, our shows and shows across the country tomorrow are going to be where people start to vent, I think, and maybe where liberals want to brag. I mean, the problem with the two political parties and their followers and voters, those who are entrenched, is both of the parties think the other one is an existential threat when in government. So conservatives are going to be very angry, and also angry about the fact that, I mean, they had the liberals on the ropes, and they've already put up with 10 years of the liberals, so it's going to drive them crazy. And one last aspect in all of this is, as you know, Bill probably from your texts and calls on my show, a cohort of liberals these days, or a cohort of conservatives, like to own the libs, and tonight they've been denied the chance to do so.
I know that you're eager to say something now. Don't hold back.
Well, you just look at those numbers of what you see is Canada becoming a two-party country.
But haven't we always been that way?
Well, no, I don't think to the degree we're seeing right now with the NDP collapsing like that. So yeah, people are going to be divided. Conservatives, we're already hearing from our listeners, I'm sure you are as well, sort of that core group that tries to reach out to you right away. And so far, conservatives are angry with people who voted liberal. But I don't think that anger will last long. I think it will turn internally pretty quickly. And they're going to say, what happened here? How did we have this in our grasp? Change that we've wanted for so long, and it's now gone. And they're going to start to ask questions of their party. The only way that doesn't become really ugly is if the conservatives can keep the liberals to a minority. Then I think you'll see they'll calm down and accept that as reality and say, we live to fight another day. We can't have our country divided right now. We need to be focused on the real enemy to our country right now is in Washington. That's the real threat. We need to work together to fight that threat. And those numbers don't show that so far.
But how do you begin to heal, right? Given the fact that we've got such a fractured nation in terms of, just look at those numbers again, you know, if it ends up being, we're waiting to see whether a minority or majority, but how do you, as the new leader of this country, reach out to those people who didn't vote?
I don't think you can. I think our country's becoming more like the United States. We hear it every day on our shows that people who are conservative are really conservative. There's that wing of the party where people, they bought into Donald Trump. They like him, and they believe that elections can be fixed, and that pollsters lie to you, and that the media is lying to you all the time. That exists in our country, and I think it's only going to grow as a result of this. Unless the Liberals get a strong majority.
In the evening, like they're going to get better then. Okay, some other good news for the Liberals at this hour. Let me show you who has just been elected as a member of Parliament for the very first time, and that is Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister. This is his first time.
If it's going to be a minority government or a majority government, there's a lot of questions still in the air.
We're right sort of where Mr. Blanchet sort of seemed to prepare us to be. And he kept on saying it was important to have the balance of power in a minority government. That's what you're hoping for at this point?
Exactly. The position at Bloc Québécois that we put forward during mostly the end of the campaign was, would we rather want to ask and hope for the fair share of the gains, or would we prefer to be able to demand and obtain? And this is the sense of this balance of power what it would provide for the people of Quebec.
It's interesting. We kept on hearing anecdotally people saying that they were long-time Bloc Québécois voters, but in this election, because of Donald Trump, they were maybe going another way, liberal. I went out to Alberta last week and had no trouble finding people who said exactly that to me. I'm wondering what was it like to be out there on the hustings with Donald Trump?
At the moment, it was super difficult, honestly. People were thinking, I'm afraid of Trump. And at this moment, the Liberal Party was like a safe asset. And some people were also afraid of other things. Some people were afraid of politics. Some people were afraid of healthcare. And it was difficult early in the campaign to sort of put ourselves into this window, but if François Blanchet really get his stance in this moment and really put forward this message that we have the advantage of focusing for the people of Quebec, for our values, for our industries. And then I would say in the middle of the campaign, this window sort of opened up, and I feel that tonight we get the results of this special moment where we kind of had a window of opportunity to put forward the message.
There's been some criticism, I'm sure you're aware, but Subakote, for example, of the place or the lack of space that the sovereignty, the drive for separation took in this election. I'm wondering, it is at a bit of a low point at the moment in Quebec. How do you feel about it?
So, if I wouldn't have checked the numbers, I would have think so. But I looked at the numbers at the same time, Léger poll, and I definitely took the numbers, and I saw that at the same time that we were talking about this Canadian patriotism, we saw the numbers in the will of independence increase up to 40%, which was something I'd never seen before. And besides, what I feel is that the independence movement is still well alive, and a whole generation never had to answer this question. So I think it's still there, but it was not put up front.
One of the things Mr. Blanchet has also said is that he doesn't want this to happen again. And there's going to be a Quebec provincial election next year, probably next year.
Minority or majority government, and you looking at the numbers at first blush believe we are headed towards a little majority.
Well, yeah, because it's going to be tight. I only because it's all under, my model, the way I projected this election, in order to get a minority government, the bloc needs to be at least above 30 seats, and the NDP needs to be around 10 to 12 at least, right? So to give a chance to the minority government. Right now, I'm not seeing that, but although Lower Mainland has not come in yet, so we'll see about that. For the bloc, I'm not sure if there's still some seats that haven't not reported yet, but if everything has reported, they're only leading in 21. That's lower than their number that they had starting at 32, I believe. And so under that number, it looks good for the Liberal to squeak out the majority.
Squeak out the majority, and 172 is the magic number that we're watching for, whether or not it is a majority. Susan, how are you feeling at this moment in time looking at the numbers?
Well, feeling better. A couple of interesting seats in Quebec. La Salle-Mont, that was the seat that was David Lametti's before the Bloc won it in the by-election. The Liberals are leading in that one, so that could be very interesting if we take that back. And at BTB, Mandy Galmasti, the former Grand Chief of the Cree, that was a Bloc riding before that, and before that it was Romeo Saganash's riding, an NDP riding, and so that's looking potentially like it could go Liberal, and that's an interesting one as well. So we'll have some interesting First Nations voices in the House of Commons if that particular seat holds. So feeling good about that. Again, continue to watch 905. I'm watching bright bits of red. It's early reporting that Stephen Fuhrer in Kelowna was a Liberal seat in 2015. He lost subsequently, and there has been some riding redistribution. I was talking to some people in Kelowna this week.
5, and the NDP at 7. What does that add up to? 172. So we may be in a situation that one of the closest things we'll be watching tonight is, can the Liberals get to a majority? For the moment, they're at 10, as we said before. They need to pick up 18, sorry I went too far to show that, 18, they're picking up a lot of those from the Bloc Québécois, 13 so far. They picked up 14 on the Conservatives, or are picking up 14, but they've also lost 18 to the Conservatives, so most of their pickups are coming at the expense of the Bloc Québécois. At the moment, you just saw the numbers change, they're at 13. They need to get to 18 pickups to get a majority, so they're looking like they might be in the 160s, high 160s, mid 160s. The NDP probably has a chance to win a few more ridings. They, of course, let's not forget, they're sorely looking at that number at 7 and hoping, can we find 5 more to get to official party status. But whether or not they get there, they may still end up with the balance of power. The Bloc Québécois clearly would have the balance of power. If there were a minority government, you could call that right now, the BQ will. But it doesn't mean the Liberals won't have the numbers close to 172, and the NDP could just put
top them up
to that.
Yeah, to form a government.
Still possible.
Which is exactly what we had before.
Yes, just a slightly different balance.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Naheed Nenshi, leader of the NDP in Alberta, former mayor of Calgary. Thanks so much for taking time with us. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks so much, Donna. You know, the last election, I was on the panel with y'all.
Oh, I know.
I guess I'm a
18% in 2021. It's down to 2.7%. And it seems to be going to both the Conservatives and the Liberals. The Liberals right now in the lead, the incumbent in second place. Let's take a look at Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. There, the NDP support has gone from 18.9 percentage points to 5.5. Now, super early, but still interesting to note and to keep an eye on. And now Richmond East and Steveston, this is another riding that kind of shows what's happened to the NDP support. It's gone from 19% in 2021 to 3.7%. Both the Liberals and Conservatives up. It looks like the Conservatives in Richmond East Steveston might be benefiting more from that drop in NDP support than the Liberals are. But throughout British Columbia, we said this hours ago. I mean, maybe it was yesterday, I'm not sure. But anyway, hours ago.
We haven't been here since yesterday, to be fair. Yeah, I know.
Anyway, what would happen to NDP support? Would it drop? It seems to be doing that in British Columbia and in a province where the Liberals and Conservatives are so competitive in so many ridings. Who will benefit the most from that? Still very much in flux, but they both seem to be benefiting.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so let's get another part of that story, and that's to look at whether a majority is still possible here as we wait to make a firm call on what kind of government Canada has chosen. So here you go again. This is back to the House of Commons. All those red seats there, leading and elected. So that gets you up to 157. Now we're going to add incumbents to come. Those are the pink seats. That is 9. So they need to hold the 157 they have, gain 9, and they are still under 6, not quite reaching a majority so far with those numbers. But let me give you another little piece of information that is relevant as we think about whether this is going to be a majority government, and that is
British Columbia. Eric, what is finding so far?
So it is early, and we are seeing a lot of red in the interior, which is a little bit of an unexpected development. Kelowna, though, is not an unexpected one. We did see that the Liberals won this back in 2015. Stephen Fuhr, as was mentioned, is back on the ballot, and he is leading. It is a small lead, but he is leading right now against the Conservative incumbent, Tracy Gray. And next door, in Okanagan Lake, West South Kelowna, that's just a few ballots, so we don't need to pay too much attention to that. And Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay, though, the Liberals are actually leading, and there's a lot of votes being counted. There's a 300-vote lead here for Gloria Morgan of the Liberals. This is quite unexpected. The NDP's incumbent was not running for re-election, and as we've seen in a lot of other places, the NDP vote is tanking. And here, it does seem like it didn't go to the Conservatives. It is going to the Liberals right now. So this is an interesting one. Maybe this could be some of those advance polls that we know are going to be pretty favorable to the Liberals. If they picked up this seat in the interior, that would be a bit of a shock. Now, if we go to the metro area, still actually waiting for a lot of results here. And this is maybe where that Liberal majority minority could play out, because if you look at last time, there was quite a lot of red. And there was a little bit of orange, and that orange is going to be tough, I think, for the New Democrats to hold. So we're waiting for some of those results to come in. We can take a look at some of them. Vancouver Kingsway, Don Davies is leading, though it isn't a huge margin right now, and there's not a lot of votes counted in Vancouver Kingsway. What about Vancouver East? Jenny Kwan is behind by 10 votes, but again, only a few votes have been counted. And this would be a bit of a surprise, and I'm expecting, yes, the Heavy Fry, who's been there since 1993. Unlikely to be taken down tonight, but right now she is trailing. That's probably an unfamiliar feeling for her.
Yeah, well, we're watching that closely, Eric. Thank you, Eric Renier, at the results board for us. Listen, as we keep an eye on the bottom line, again, repeating, Canadian Press, which is our declaration team, they have declared a Liberal government, but we're also keeping an eye on where the leaders are riding right now. We have 2 riding results to share with you, beginning with the riding of Carleton. This is in the capital region.
Vote Socialist and NDP, so it's surprising to me that a 4% result for the NDP is shocking. So obviously we'll see a new NDP leader, and that obviously would make a difference in the future, but not tonight. Sure, you're talking about leadership, but you're focusing on the NDP leader. Let's talk about Pierre Poilievre as a leader. What was it about his leadership run in this campaign that people said, I'm choosing differently? Well, just remember, no, he actually grew the base of the Conservative Party. He tonight delivered a vote that won us the majority under Stephen Harper. He's grown the base of the party. The progressive vote has completely gone to the Liberals, and the NDP completely collapsed. I do think that Jagmeet Singh has to take some responsibility for that. he had an opportunity to differentiate himself from the Liberals, and he wasn't able to.
Arjun, I'm going to let you jump in, but I wanted to say something that I think is really interesting, is that this became a fight about who could stand up to Donald Trump. But do you think any of the leaders imagined that we were going to have what you were talking about now, Rana, which is we've got to look at how do we unify a country, let alone fight what's coming from south of the border? Arjun, why don't you jump in?
That's that point. I mean, Canadians were united on a message of rejection of Trump, right? That's what this election was largely about. Now they're picking a leader who they felt that can best lead them to deal with Trump. And we can't, I mean, at the end of the day, we can't blame the forces of one party towards the downfall of another, right? At the end of the day now, it's about everybody needs to unite. And that I think is very important. I personally think the divide is not going to be as significant with Mark Carney's, not only as James mentioned to me about, reminding me that Mark Carney's from Edmonton. I think also British.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think he would not be the first party leader who is trying to win an election, going all over the country, and the stakes are so high, and the leader's presence, the leader's time, is one of the most important things a political party has in a campaign. And so as the leader's going out and trying to help all of the other candidates win their seats, you know, it's hard to be in two places at once. Also, Bruce Fanjoy for the Liberals has been working for about 2 years to try to win this riding. And I mean, I can remember seeing interviews with him where people are basically like, "Are you crazy? You're never going to win. This is, you know, why even bother?" But now the closeness of the race is unbelievable, right? And so, and I think this riding was the one in the whole country that had the highest advanced poll turnout, which I think the Liberals were reading as probably a pretty good day for them. It also had that crazy ballot though with 91 people on it, and that's the part that I'm worried. I'm just looking, there's only just a few people reporting, but there's almost 8 other people who have votes, and if this comes down to something really tight between Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Fanjoy, and all these votes have been peeled off by this ridiculous 91-person list ballot, I think that's exceptionally disappointing, and I think that's been a bit of an abuse of democracy. Obviously, everybody's vote counts, but it is probably not the intended result that the people in the riding actually wanted because of this.
Election candidates, it would take a long time to get the final results. So what we have is very, very fragmented. They started doing the count very early, I think, right? Yeah, because it's a very, very long ballot.
That riding, the ballot was 2 feet long, and a lot of people were struggling to unfold it, let alone read all 90 names, because you really had to search it.
We saw this morning when Mr. Poilievre went to vote. The ballot looked like a book, which he was putting in it for the picture, like it was so big.
Well, and in fact, just to reenact a little bit, the ballots were so large that they had to keep stuffing them into the box because they occupy so much more space. So we'll see how late that actually goes to be declared. But right now, as we said, Bruce Fanjoy, the Liberal leading in the riding of Carleton. But let's bring up right now the riding of Nepean one more time, because we can share with you that Mark Carney has been elected in Nepean. So that is the first time elected as a member of Parliament. Again, this is the riding right beside Pierre Poilievre's riding in Carleton. We'll keep watching what's taking place in Carleton, but Mr. Carney, the Liberal leader, not only right now presiding over a Liberal win as declared by the Canadian press, he has now secured his seat in the riding of Nepean. So, you know, I'm wondering if we could bring in
of things. Also on Vancouver Island, Cowichamela had Langford, one of the fastest growing ridings in terms of population in the country. I've talked to Alistair McGregor about that a few times. He's the incumbent, leading by a little bit over the Conservatives right now. 8 polls reporting there. Let's take a look, a little closer look at Vancouver right now. We have, these are all NDP seats right in the heart. And in fact, let's take a look at Vancouver, Fraser View, South Burnaby. It's a new riding. The former mayor, Gregor Robertson, right now, with just 1 poll in, is leading in Vancouver, Fraser View. We have no results in Burnaby Central. You notice we've declared Mark Carney elected. No results right now in Burnaby Central. That's Jagmeet Singh's riding. Down south, New Westminster, Burnaby, Mallartville. Peter Julian is the incumbent. He's won 7 times, but he's, after 2 polls in, he's in 3rd place right now. And Don Davies is the lone New Democrat that is leading right now in downtown Vancouver. Don Davies, with 4 polls in, is up at 43%. So that's our first look, some potential change. This would be a big change if this holds. South Surrey White Rock, the Liberals with 2 polls right now are leading on the incumbent Conservative Carrie Lynn Finley. The Liberals, I'm trying to think if they've ever won South Surrey White Rock. If they have, it's been a long, long time. That will be something. Cloverdale, Langley City, and we'll send back to you.
David, thank you. Lots of votes still to be counted. Out there in BC, let's go to Neetu Garcha, who is in Burnaby at the headquarters of the NDP. And Neetu, at this point, we have on, by our count, the NDP leading or elected in 9 seats.
NDP translating to a big decrease in seats. Even though the Bloc sees a decrease as well, their significance in the House of Commons just went up by a whole lot.
And so the question now for the Liberals is, who will be their dance partner? Now,
right?
The situation, of course, it's a very interesting development.
Tom, don't laugh. You're going to be back here maybe in a few months.
Right now, but a very narrow lead. We're talking about only 4 votes, with 58 riding polls reporting in that riding. Mississauga East, Cooksville, Peter Fonseca right now a narrow lead over Nita Kang, the Conservative candidate in that riding. One more close race here. This is Newmarket Aurora. This is Jennifer McLaughlin over Sandra Kobina, leading by about 100 votes there, a little bit over 100 votes. So keeping a close eye on that. And then one more riding here. This is Eglinton Lawrence, the riding Eglinton Lawrence. Vince Gasparo leading over Karen Stitz. Karen Stitz, very well known in the Toronto area, local politician in that city. But there you have it. Close races that we're keeping an eye on in the greater Toronto area. And of course, the GTA will be a very big play in this election, as it always has been. Ontario will be, as it always has been, with 122 seats. Cole, is this... You actually reacted when Eric was talking about Conservatives overperforming in the GTA. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, I think it does quite a bit, just because of the variance in the polling numbers we saw throughout the election. So if we're doing a lot better than we were there, perhaps the Liberals can't get to that majority number. So we'll see how that plays out, but that does run, opposite to the polling trend throughout the election. So that's an encouraging trend to perhaps move the Liberals to a minority.
And for Ruth, we have the NDP leading in 9 ridings, although I didn't see any of the NDP in the GTA right now. What are your feelings about what's unfolding in Ontario right now?
Yeah, GTA is going to be hard. I think the scenario is mostly the 3 seats in that trade corridor where tariffs hit hard. London, Windsor West, Hamilton Center. Right now it looks tight. It's not there yet. But 9, with the number of the Liberals around 162, 63, if I do my math correctly, 163 plus 9 is 172. So I'm saying that it could be something like that. And even though Mr. Singh could lose maybe a third of the seats, there's still a chance that it could have the balance. I think it could hang on to that.
Well, and at this point, the NDP leading in 10 ridings, according to the ticker there at the bottom of the traffic. When you look at these trend lines going, if Farouk's calculations are talking about 172, that is a majority territory, but shorter than what I think the Liberals were expecting this evening when they looked at the poll
Absolutely. I mean, we've certainly seen in the past couple of weeks the Liberals go in the polls from almost a sure thing majority down to not a sure, not so much. Now looking at these, I did the math a couple of minutes ago, it was 10 seats not reporting. But looking at this, I mean, there could be a scenario here where we come to the end of the night and they're not quite at that majority line, which means, do they make another pact with the NDP to get through? What is the role of the Bloc Québécois in that case? Things start to get really interesting. And I think, Carney's been clear from day one, give me a majority. I need it to be able to get through to do what I need to do. This is going to be
a very stressful circumstance for everyone, I think, if it's a minority.
On se rend compte en effet que dans le pire scénario, des soldats.
The worst scenarios. And if the Bloc does better and the NDP does better, more pollsters were predicting, and if the Conservatives do better, that means that the Liberals do less well. So we still have results to come, but now it's starting to look like what it's going to look like.
Right now, let's bring in a national leading elected board right now. Just give some context to the bottom line that we're looking at. Liberals elected in 66, leading in 92. Excuse me, the Conservatives elected in 62, leading in 81. Now, I'm going to ask the controller to also get together for me, if it's possible, leading and elected in the province of Alberta, because we've talked about Ontario, we talked a little bit about British Columbia, and certainly we talked about Quebec. This is the leading elected right now in Alberta, with the Conservatives elected in 19 ridings, leading in 13. The Liberals right now leading only in 3. I want to go back to Janet Brown, pollster in Alberta, the Janet Brown opinion research. Janet, thank you for joining us once again. So we were talking before we were going in, and again to state, we are early in the results when it comes to the
things I've witnessed covering the Conservative campaign for the majority of this campaign. What stands out to me in my mind right now is a platform release day. So in the last week of the campaign, the platform release had a whole bunch of issues that have been coming up just last minute, not a lot of time there. But I really stands out standing in that room at that press conference with at platform release day. And there was a moment when the whole energy in the room shifted, and Poilievre in his comments about the platform release sort of paused and said, I owe this country everything. And in that moment, I felt the energy in the room completely shift. And it was as if he was acknowledging or feeling a change of winds, so to speak, about how things were going. And he had almost a sheen in his eyes, saying that he owes the country everything. And I saw that again at another point in a rally. And that, to me, was a real sense of the campaign shifting in that final week and seeing that. And I think I've mentioned this before, but last night at his rally in his own riding, when he said for the first time, no matter what happens tomorrow, I'll be there to fight for you. And obviously the question was left hanging there as to whether he was acknowledging the possibility that Conservatives may not form government. So still waiting to hear official word from the campaign about reaction to this and to what's happening, but a much different mood in the room here now.
All right, thank you so much, Abigail. It's Abigail Beeman at Conservative headquarters in Ottawa. I want to bring in our chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. A couple of different things certainly stand out here. First of all, I know we talk about the economy more broadly, but for a lot of people it's been cost of living, and we're seeing some movement in the 905 in the areas around Toronto, which is a very unaffordable place to live, that there is additional support for the Conservatives coming through. At the same time, we see the Liberals being held to a minority. What does that tell you about Mark Carney's ability to deal with Trump?
I think, strategists will have a better view of this, but that whole, the price that incumbents pay really does play out when it comes down to people's, the affordability issue is one, the housing issue is a long-term structural problem in this country. Poor Sean Fraser may be paying for some of past sins there. What's to me very interesting that we need to be paying attention to right now is, when we got those two platforms kind of late from the Liberals and the Conservatives, we didn't really get a full federal platform from the Bloc Québécois because they don't need to. We don't need to know what they think about these things. Well, suddenly they might matter a great deal what the Bloc Québécois thinks because they hold the balance of power. So when we think about the Liberals' spending plans, which are large, right? We know they're going to take our deficit up to $60+ billion in the first fiscal year. That's a big number. That's new debt that we'll all carry. They'll need the support from another party for that. And that other party might have spending plans of their own, let's remember. So what was already sort of a big spend facing down the tariff fight, trying to prop up the economy, and economists think it will do that, might get to be an even bigger and more costly spend as we look down this.
And Amanda, as you're speaking, we just have the results for Central Nova. We saw a little bit of a seesaw back and forth, the Liberals and the Conservatives, and we are now able to declare that the incumbent, Sean Fraser, is going to be re-elected in his riding of Central Nova. So despite an early lead from Bryce Jenkins, the Conservative, we know that Sean Fraser will be winning there, has recaptured his seat. Stephen Guilbeault winning his seat in
Hamilton to London to Windsor right now. Those are blue. the conventional wisdom was the collapse of the NDP vote would elect Liberals. But if the Liberals and the NDP both are strong second and third, the Conservatives could come up the middle. That may be what is happening in those areas. And just going back to the GTA, I know this was a concern up in the York region here, was that the NDP vote dropping would help the Liberals run up the score in the downtown Toronto core where they're going to win just by larger margins. But there were not really any NDP vote to be gained in a lot of these 905 outer areas. And that would just, you would have a false sense of how viable you were in those ridings, and you would see Conservatives flip those blue. So the Liberals, still early yet in Ontario, but vote inefficiency not playing in their favor as they are down double-digit seats in a province that pollsters from start to finish had them up double-digit points, right?
But that again speaks to what we're talking about around the popular vote and the seat efficiency. Nothing is working as it normally would in an election. That's what's happening, right?
Yes, and you know, Donald Trump obviously disrupted this entire election. I mean, the U.S. president makes about $400,000 US a year. The Liberals should probably book that as a campaign expense, given the way that it's helped them throughout this thing. But you know, until we get sort of the urban votes in mass number to know exactly how the cities of Canada are going to vote, and the suburbs of Canada are going to finally vote, and of course British Columbia, it's hard to know if they're going to get there. But the vote efficiency that has helped the Liberals win the 2019 federal election and win the 2021 federal election, despite losing the popular vote, at this stage, we're not yet seeing that. Now, they're starting to tick back up. They're in 161 right now. Them and the New Democrats and the Greens, Rosie, that's a majority. You got a bingo right there, but you know, that's a whole lot of work that still needs to be sorted out at this point in the night.
Okay, thank you so much for that, David Cochrane. If you're just tuning in, we have in fact called a Liberal government with Mark Carney as Canada's 24th Prime Minister. He also has been elected for the very first time in his life in the riding of Nepean. We are waiting to see whether it's a minority or a majority, so we're going to go to Adrian now, who's got some results, projected results, maybe that will help us get there.
Indeed, so we're looking at a projected elected, the only one that is a flip in Ontario so far, that is Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Again, the only projected elected flip for the Liberals so far in Ontario. Wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Leslie Church? Well, why don't we do that? Let's talk to Eli Glaster, who is in Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Hello, Eli.
Yeah, Adrian, so we are here in our room crammed with volunteers.
Parties work together and, you know, effect change because we are at a critical crossroads in this country, as we all know. Heather Butts is standing by with some more data and some more context. Heather.
Thanks, Omar. Yeah, we're looking at perhaps what parties Nick might actually end up helping the Liberals in government. But we'll take a look at our House projections. And this is, again, how we got to where we are right now in the evening. The CTV decision desk projecting that the Liberals could see a range of seats anywhere from 154 to 167, so not reaching that magic marker of 172. The Conservatives could get anywhere from 138 to 152. But Nick, we're really looking at the Bloc and the NDP. The NDP only getting anywhere from 9 to 15. This could really play out interesting tonight.
Yeah, it's a significant setback for the NDP. And the big question is, will the Bloc hold the balance of power in the next parliament? And what does that mean for the Federation and for Mark Carney and his government?
Certainly an interesting story playing out here. So, Nick, the numbers are coming in, but we still have some really close races. We still don't know for sure all of the MPs yet, of course, who will be heading to Ottawa. So we're going to zero in on Ontario, and we're going to look at the 905 area. For those of you not in Ontario, that's that area around Toronto on the outskirts. And we're looking at Brampton right now. Nick, some pretty tight ridings here. First, taking a look at Brampton to Kesey Park.
Yeah, this is all going to come down to organization. It's basically street by street, block by block. It's going to be interesting to see whether the Conservatives can take it over or whether the Liberals hold.
Just an 81 vote difference there in that riding. Brampton East, Liberals in the lead, but just 221 vote split there.
And I think this speaks to the ground game, and the Conservatives are probably hoping they can pick up a couple of these Brampton seats.
Okay, and this one, Brampton West, Nick.
Yeah, this is for the Liberals. So just think, if the Brampton's basically in play, you know, a handful of polls could make the difference.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move over to Aurora Oak Ridges. This is just north of Toronto. And the Conservatives in the lead by 982, but the incumbent, the Liberals, in second place.
Yeah, you know, this is good news for the Conservatives because this potentially could be a pickup, but, you know, check out the NDP numbers, basically nowhere. and the Liberals trailing.
Okay, and let's head over to Markham, Unionville. We'll see what it's looking like there. The Conservatives in the lead by 510, Nick.
Yeah, this is traditionally has been Conservative in the past, so this is good news for Polyev on this front. But all of these races are fragile right now.
Okay, let's take a look at another one. Richmond Hill South, still in that Toronto area. Vincent Ho in the lead right now, but another Liberal incumbent trailing, Nick.
Yeah, a bit of a comfy lead for Ho on this front, even with 115 polls reporting. So it'll be interesting to see, with the advanced polls, how that actually plays itself out.
Okay, a couple of close ridings, close races in the 905. That is around the Greater Toronto area. For now, we'll send it back to the National Newsroom.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. You see again the floor and the ceiling there, the max that the CTV's decision desk is projecting is 167, so about 5 seats shy of the 172 majority, and we have in fact called for a Liberal minority government. But some interesting results there coming at you from the 905.
Very much so, and I think reflective, again, as I mentioned to Amanda, of the challenges with affordability and the degree to which
are up 9. That is not what they were hoping for. What's happening in particular ridings? Well, let's look at Newmarket, Aurora here. This was the second slimmest margin of victory for the Liberals. Last time they hoped they would hang on to it, they are not. Let's look at Brampton. I spent a lot of time in Brampton. Even though this is a place affected by tariffs, everybody there talked about affordability and crime. They were very nervous. That may explain some of what you're seeing here with the Conservatives with the 419 vote lead. One more I want to look at here. This is Milton East, Halton Hill South. Brand new riding in Ontario. It was projected that it would be very close with the Liberals, and yet with only 43 polls reporting, the Conservatives have a lead there of 528. If at the end of the night we are talking about a Liberal minority and not a Liberal majority, you might want to look at what happened in the GTA for some answers there.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Adrian. I should tell you there are 5 ridings where we don't have any information yet at all, no data. But you can see there are 2 greens on the board there, and just to give you a sense of who those are, not confirmed, projected elected, but leading. That is both in Kitchener Centre with Mike Morris and with, of course, the co-leader Elizabeth May in Saanich Gulf Island. We'll, of course, keep you posted on whether those hold. Let's go over to Ian, though, now with some results.
Yeah, Rosie, counting is slow in a lot of the British Columbia ridings, but I do want to take a look at what the seat change looks like at this point. Keep in mind, a lot of the seats in British Columbia are not projected to be done, to be elected, but still in play. But you can see both Conservatives and Liberals by 3 each, and that's at the expense of the NDP. Let's look at some examples of what's leading to the potential seat change. Langley Township, Fraser Heights. What's interesting to me about this is John Aldag, who used to be an MP, running again here, is how his share of the vote has just soared. It's gone from 30% in the last election in this riding to 48.3%. And so it's not coming at the expense of the Conservatives. They have almost exactly the same support right now. It's early, I know, as they did in 2021. Some of it's the NDP. Their vote has collapsed from almost 20% to just 5%. Vancouver Kingsway. If you know BC politics at all or follow the NDP closely, this will be really surprising to see Don Davies, a longtime incumbent, in second place. It's only a lead of 13, but we'll keep an eye on Vancouver Kingsway. Interesting to see that result. And in Richmond Centre, again, counts pretty small. It takes a long time to count votes in a lot of the British Columbia ridings. But you see the incumbent, Wilson Miao, in second place, and the Conservatives right now in a small, but still interesting lead. Lots of churn in these early counting moments in British Columbia.
And lots of close races too, and we'll show you a little bit more about how close some of those races are and why the numbers at the bottom of your screen are moving back and forth so dramatically, and indeed why we have yet to be able to call what kind of government Canadians have elected here. Right now, the Liberals leading are elected in 156, remember, it's 172 who need for a majority. Conservatives ticking up to 148, Bloc at 25. A lot of churn. A lot of things still moving here, and that that means that we're going to take our time to call what kind of government Canada will end up with by the end of the night. We know it will be Liberal. We don't know whether it's minority or majority. Catherine Saladino.
Yeah, let's look at some places where the numbers are starting to firm up. In this case, we're going to be looking particularly at an indicator of what's to come. Now, it was a